Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, when Pakistan has been navigating a complex and challenging path, grappling with a fragile economic condition, International Monetary Fund became a crucial lifeline. But to get out of this fragile condition and situation, it is important that Pakistan must have to implement the strict and extremely painful reforms, particularly in the areas, multiple sectors of taxation, state-owned enterprises, energy and debt retirement. We'll discuss the vital need for macroeconomic stability. It includes the stable currency, controlled inflation, sustainable debt management and broader tax base, essential for attracting the foreign direct investment into the country and fostering the most important and much needed economic growth. This is a crucial movement for Pakistan because the success or failure of these economic reforms will have the profound impact on the livelihood and the lifeline of millions. To discuss the economic benchmarks of Pakistan economy, particularly in current circumstances, we have in our studios Dr. Ali Salman. He is the Executive Director of Prime. Most welcome to you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali. And with him, Syed Tanseer Bukhari. He is the Senior Advocate of Supreme Court and a tax expert. Most welcome to you, Bukhari sahab. Thank you very much for your time as well. And online joining us, Dr. Hasan Zafar. He is the political economy analyst. Most welcome to you, Dr. Hasan. Thank you very much for your time online. My first question to you, Dr. Ali, that what you perceive out of the current economic indicators during the first 4 months of the current fiscal year 2025. Like rupee stays strong and it's bit appreciating. Dollar supply improved and the inflation down to all-time low to 7.2% during the current year. So the policy rate cut by the State Bank of Pakistan, it's the last one was 15% now. The stock exchange breaking records of 96,000 points, KSE 100 index. The foreign exchange reserves rose to around $16 billion mark, and exports are now reaching at least $13.11 billion. So how do you see overall benchmark or for economic indicators right now?
You see, Faisal, when we talk about economy, it's a very complex subject.
Obviously it is.
And, our conclusions can be drawn by the indicators that we choose.
Definitely, definitely.
And I think the indicators which you have chosen are certainly on a positive trajectory, particularly the way we have brought down the inflation rate is certainly a good news for the consumers as well as for businesses. And
investors as well.
As investors as well. And we are enjoying better stability in terms of our macroeconomic environment than, let's say, 2 years before. We are hoping that this environment, particularly when followed by a reduction in the inflation rate, the State Bank is also gradually bringing the discount rate.
Obviously.
Which has been a long demand by the industry. We are hoping that this will encourage the shift of the credit to the private sector, in which the government has been the major shareholder for last few years. And even today, this news I was reading, and it's a good news that out of the deposits, the flow to the private sector has increased to almost 50%.
Definitely.
Which is, I think, welcome news. And in the short run, this has created a window of for growth. But as I said, if you look at, for instance, the other indicators, particularly, let's say, the large-scale manufacturing growth, it is still to be picked up.
Definitely,
It's like,
definitely.
you know, about 1%.
It is very slow, extremely slow, definitely.
We're also anticipating, you know, problems with the wheat crop output next year because of the changed incentive structure in the
Definitely the
sector.
support price and all that.
Support price is gone. And I think it's a good thing that the government is doing. There should not be any support price. From my point
Definitely,
of view.
definitely.
But it will take some time for farmers to adjust to this reality. So we should be, you know, we should be ready for that. And to do that, I think we should keep the trade volumes or trade doors open, particularly for agriculture commodities.
Obviously.
And then you mentioned two important things in your opening statement, and that is the reforms, particularly the reforms in the taxation structure and SOE reforms, and as well as energy sector reforms. Our institute is next week actually releasing a report, complete roadmap of energy sector reform, in which we believe that deregulation has to come first before privatization.
Definitely.
And
very
I think
important.
that is a major challenge for our economy right now, because not just the cost of the power, but also the governance of the power structure is holding our economy you know, very badly.
Definitely.
And that needs to be
I'll wait for that report, because it is very important to go through that when it comes to the real-time economic indicators of Pakistan. So,
and just if you allow me just to complete
yeah,
one
why not?
sentence,
Why not? Please.
And I don't think that is about the tax environment and the tax policy. I think the major concern has been from the economist and also from the business community that we would like to see you know, stable tax policy, predictable tax policy, and like to see that eventually the tax rates should come down, both on the salaried class and also
You
on the
are
businesses.
talking about
So
tax. You are talking about tax. Syed Tanseer Bukhari sahab, although Pakistan has the time until the February 2025 to make up the revenue targets, as shortfall stood at least rupees 190 billion in the first quarter of the current fiscal year. Federal Board of Revenue has to generate at least 610 billion rupees till November 30th this month to stay on course to attain at least 12.97 trillion tax target. Before IMF first review, as the finance minister rejected any possibility of having the mini budget or anything like that, or some sort of a drastic measures. But do you think that this benchmark, as finance minister is very hopeful of achieving this benchmark, do you think that this critical shortfall, we are going to overcome that and going to attain that target?
Thank you very much, Faisal. Now, what is the position in the country? We are observing since last 2-3 days. If you remember, we are facing trouble in Pakistan since last 10 years. First of all, I give the credit to this government. They get the target enhanced by 40%. 40% is not a joke.
Yes, it
In
is
the
a huge
current
benchmark,
turmoil
really.
situation, economic situation, when the government took charge, they were facing. At the same time, now FBR is no doubt under stress, under pressure, and they are trying to achieve the target by all means before 30th. I think so little bit difficult, 30th November.
Okay.
But hopefully, if the political situation strengthen in our country and sustain the any other thing which is unexpected, if you're seeing the private
Because you know
media,
the political stability is also needed
this
when it
is
comes
the
to
main
economy.
thing.
So it
This
is very
Faisal, this is the main thing. If there is no stability and uncertainty each and every hour on the private media, so what do you think business can flourish? No. The people will come in status quo situation. At the moment, government successfully enhanced this 40%, but unfortunately made the burden on the salaried class, which needed to be addressed by all means.
Finance
Already-
minister just made a statement that no more burden would be imposed
I
on the
think so.
salaried
I
class.
think so.
At least he
Yeah.
has made the statement. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of a
It's
positive
not-
sign on that
a
trajectory.
positive.
But on that note, when we are talking about Dr. Ali, is this expectation or the anticipation is right that Pakistan's inflation rate soon would be go down to 78 months low to 5% as compared to the 5 months average 7.2% during the current fiscal year. So it was started declining from 38%. So what it really means when we are talking about having extremely low inflation rate, which is always a positive sign for any economy.
So certainly, I think first of all, an admission on as an economist, I think the inflation rate has gone down and decreased beyond our expectation.
Yes, it is. It
and
is.
Actually,
really.
even the government and even the state bank,
It's really
monetary
surprising.
policy
Yes.
was not anticipating that. I think, and partly it is the result of a cautionary monetary policy, which the state bank
Or
has
we can say
maintained.
the tight fiscal policy.
Fiscal policy, you see, fiscal policy is about increased expenditure or taxation. That is still on the expansion side.
Okay.
So I'm afraid that it may not be due to the fiscal policy. It may be the monetary policy and also the commodity prices coming down gradually. That will also, because we are an oil importing country,
Yes.
so that has also created
Our
a
import bill is
positive,
always very high, really.
positive impact for bringing the inflation down. And if you look at the long-term target of state bank, because the main mandate of the central bank now after 2019 is, remember, the inflation, managing inflation, managing prices. So that is the main mandate, and their target is to keep the inflation rate between 5% to 7%.
Okay.
In that respect, they have achieved their target. Now we should look and build on this opportunity and trigger growth. Growth particularly, it should be driven by the private sector, driven by FDI, driven by domestic resource mobilization.
Definitely.
Not necessarily through the government money, because, as you rightly mentioned, fiscal issues also always come in. If the government, in the start of the budget, before the budget, government was very ambitious about a huge PHDP program, but then it was curtailed, because of the IMF program, and it rightly so, because we don't want to fund a program which we cannot sustain, development program or current expenditure.
It is always happening, unfortunately, that
major
we should
challenge.
have a cut on the development budget, but it is always because of lots of pressures. So, that
we need to reorganize a lot of things
Obviously,
in how
obviously.
the government is being run. But just important to add a perspective here, according to a very recent book by a former minister and economist, Dr. Aisha Waz Pasha, she has analyzed it in last 20 years. As percentage of GDP, our expenditure to GDP has increased by almost 20%. This is the government expenditure. Whereas our revenue, the tax to GDP, non-tax to GDP total, has remained flat around 10 to 11%. So that's the gap.
we are coming on the government expenditures as well. So, Dr. Hasan, you are anxiously waiting for your turn as well. So, International Monetary Fund is expected to undertake its first formal biannual review during the end of February or the early March next year. Pakistan's reform process, especially when it comes to the FBR transformation and the taxation system, energy, agriculture sector, the curtailing the government expenditures, state-owned enterprises issues, and the debt retirement are considered very critical. Do you think that these economic reform benchmarks and would be achieved prior to the review process next year?
Thank you very much, Faisal Saab. I don't think that it is achievable before the deadline. And the reason is simply, as Bukhari Saab stated, that there is political instability in the country, and as long as we have an unstable political situation, these targets appear to be quite unlikely. And talking about the inflation rate, as Ali Saab is discussing, I have very serious concerns about the inflation rate, because it is at around 15% at the moment, and the government claims that the inflation rate is 7.2% and the interest rate is 15%. Now, how do we calculate the interest rate? A very rough calculation is that your inflation rate plus 2 is your interest rate. So if the government claim is that the inflation is down to 7%, then the interest rate should be 9% or maybe 9.5%. Why is it 15%? It remains to be really studied deep into, because nothing can explain 15% of interest rate in that scenario. Number two, why the prices are another perspective is that the inflation rate can only be determined. The the inflation is 7.2%, does not mean that the prices have gone down. The speed with which the inflation was going up, that has decreased from 40 to 7.2%. Does not mean that the inflation has actually come down. It has only slowed down. The growth of inflation has only slowed down. So this is a numbers game which we need to be very clear about. The inflation in real terms has not gone down by any means. As for the International Monetary Fund, the most conspicuous aspect of the recent visit was that it ended without issuing any customary end of mission statement. What does that mean? It is leaving many uncertainties about the outcome. Some media outlets have they're speculating that the lenders are releasing its findings anytime soon, while details remain available. So it is evident from the briefings that they provided to the journalists during the talks that the IMF is deeply concerned about several issues. Now, what are they actually concerned about? Exactly the things
Definitely.
that
You are absolutely right, Dr. Hasan, that IMF is very much concerned on that particular point. And when we are talking about those important concerns of the IMF, one of them is the state-owned enterprises. So do you not think that the plan envisaged or the privatization or the merger, closure or restructuring of the initial some 16 state-owned enterprises would be possible in next 6 months because of the huge liabilities, particularly when it comes to the debt burden of such entities like Pakistan International Airline, the Pakistan Engineering Company, Utility Stores Corporation, and like others, the Gencos, the Discos, the distribution companies, and airports as well. And would it be the step in right direction? And IMF is very much concerned on this particular area, the state-owned enterprises.
State-owned enterprises, we saw what happened with the PIA. It was the 10 billion bid for the PIA, including the liabilities that it has. And then we also heard about the overseas Pakistani in the United States. They were making some reasonable offer, but we have not heard about any outcome of that offer. So where is the government standing on that platform? The government is, I don't know, because the privatization is a complex issue. It is hugely political as well as economically complex situation, because all the state-owned enterprises that that the government is trying to sell, they are running in huge losses. So how do we calculate the losses and liabilities and the real assets? My idea is that
you are absolutely right, because in that perspective, every investor into the state-owned enterprises needs a very clear balance sheet of any organization. So it is very important. Dr. Ali, how do you see the IMF stress on retiring $26.2 billion of the immediate debt we have to pay? So particularly filling the external financial gap as well, because 2.5 billion required in the current fiscal year. Earlier, the Governor State Bank said that at least $5.7 billion already paid, 14.1 billion rollover, and $6.3 billion will be arranged. From where still it is not known. Although the government listed at least 1.2 billion oil on deferred payment from Saudi Arabia and planning to float some bonds into the international market. So do you think that this external financing gap would be fulfilled and we are going to attain that, and rollovers is a sustainable model?
Well, there is an answer in your question also, Faisal. But usually the gap in terms of the external financing has been a major concern in this whole program which we have signed with IMF.
Obviously, yes.
And I would also like to mention that that in some of its projections, I think IMF also has gone a bit overboard and more optimistic than the current scenario. And also because we are in this situation where it's a very tricky situation actually, because the success of the IMF program when we were going to sign the program was dependent on the rollover from China and from UAE, from Saudi governments, and that those guarantees did came in, and similarly their rescheduling, reprofiling depends on a clean certificate provided by IMF.
Obviously.
So both sources of external financing are interdependent in a way. For us, I think what we should hope is a steady rise in the remittance and the exports. That will actually help in reducing this gap. But the gap is there.
Obviously.
But I think the recent trends have been positive on both accounts. And although it is difficult to predict what will be the exact
definitely
flow
because it's a very tricky
end of,
situation.
End of the year. But if the flows continue, then I think we'll be doing all right.
Flows, fortunately, right now the current circumstances is that at least these flows are rising. So flows are rising. So there is no shortage of dollars as well because and export even marginal, but it is growing. So you have some sort of a space available, but that is very squeezed. So we have to be very cautious on that, definitely. Yeah. So Tanseer sir, how does imposition of the agriculture income tax, AIT, with livestock included, will contribute from January 2025, as Punjab is the first province which took lead, at least, having the target of about 1 trillion in couple of years. This is not only Punjab, it is accumulative across Pakistan. So right now, the agriculture income tax is just 10 billion against a potential yield of at least 230 billion rupees. So what about farmers? How they will file their returns? And most of the farmers are uneducated or illiterate. So how they are going to submit their agri-tax? Would there be any simplified mechanism, because still in urban areas tax problems are not settled primarily. So how do you see that? Because filing a return and submitting an agri-tax, these two are the basic benchmarks when it comes to the agri-income tax.
Faisal, first of all, I appreciate this news which I taken from your side, that agriculture tax is the focus of the government.
Definitely, all, definitely. And provinces are on board, because first time ever the IMF is also in connection with them.
If she is taking this step, I say congratulations to you. The reason is this: why we have not yet charged taxes on agriculture? Where are the prices? We see the wheat prices rise, non-stoppable. Where is the government? Now, right now position is this: if we get the 1 trillion rupee from this thing initially, this is not the big game for the filing of tax returns. We have billions of rupee software which name IRIS.
Definitely.
Which is owned by
IRIS,
FBR, regulatory authority. Right now the position is this: just to open up one window for it. One thing is important, which is the implementation, registration, how you register. You must give the exemptions and some slab for the small farmers without burdening them to contribute the economy as well. There are vaderas in our Sindh, in Punjab. They have thousands of hectares of land, but they are paying nothing. You also said that 10 billion collected last year on the head of account agriculture income. What do you think? Is it we are the agriculture country? If the business industrial
and this is not the story of agriculture only. You have the gold traders, they are not in tax system. Retailers, traders, real estate. There are lots of sectors which are lucrative, but they are not in tax system.
It's a little bit different. Okay, we are not touching the business. Business is since 1947 we are taxing them. Okay, Failure is whatever we can say, this is another story. Right now, the agri tax is the need of time.
Definitely it
And
is.
documentation is the need of time. We are facing crisis in our cash flow and funds. So we need this thing. I really appreciate if the government and especially the Punjab government take this step. What do you think, Faisal? You know, India, why grow day by day? And since last 20 years, first, the stability in political system. The second is the competition between the provinces. If you study the Indian model, they are in competition with each other. One province yield is from the agriculture is 100 rupee, the other targeting to 110. So we see in a 10-year, their foreign reserve, their foreign currency exchange rates, their economy, all these are done. This government is doing rigorously on it, this all project. Even current political scenario is in front of all of us.
Definitely,
okay?
you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Dr. Hasan, what about Pakistan's recent negotiations with the IMF visiting team to have an extended fund size, like the climate financing loan up to $1.2 billion? What would be the ultimate outcome, as Pakistan team is optimistic because IMF extension of such facility to at least 20 other nations hit by the climate disasters, and Pakistan's case is very much on that account. So IMF also suggested in return that Pakistan should have to allocate at least 1% of its GDP annually towards the National Climate Fund as well. While recently, Asian Development Bank has extended $500 million loan to tackle this calamities and particularly the climate resilience, which is already secured. So how do you see this aspect of the climate financing? Do you think that IMF is going to extend this facility to Pakistan, and subsequently we are also going to allocate at least 1% of the GDP to the climate fund?
They have imposed 4 conditions before they are ready to provide any funds in that regard. According to that, by the end of by fiscal year 2025, that starts in July, we have to undertake 4 basic reforms, starting with reducing the basic rate on general fund loans. Number 2 is raising the threshold of surcharges, which are triggered when outstanding credit exceeds the IMF determined national quota, that is from 187.5% to 300%. And number 3 is lowering the rate of surcharges applied to credit outstanding after 3 years from 100 to 75 basic points. And number 4, introducing a regular 5-year review of surcharges. And the way things are moving, Faisal Saab, frankly speaking, I don't know how ready is Pakistan to comply with these demands, because already the demands put by the IMF, reducing the government size and deregulating the economy, we have seen very little in that direction. On the contrary, after the $7 billion loan was approved by the IMF, and they made these demands very, very clear that you reduce the government side, and we saw some increase in the government size on the other hand. So I'm not sure, given all that, all the steps that the government has been taking so far, keeping that record and history in view, I don't know if we are really heading in the right direction when it comes to meeting these requirements.
Your point well taken, Dr. Hasan. There is a sharp increase also in remittances. We have noticed at least 24% increase overall, or $3 billion in October alone. Leading source is obviously the Gulf region. July to October, remittances increased by at least 35% and stood at $11.8 billion, while during the first 3 months of the current fiscal year, foreign direct investment also grows to at least 48%, or $771 million. So, which is now around $903.5 million. How you
Yes.
categorize it, and do you not think that the government has to encourage the local and the overseas Pakistani investors to invest inside the country to give confidence to the foreign investors to come to Pakistan? Because it is very important when we own our economy, when our people are going to invest into different sectors within the country and from abroad in the form of overseas Pakistanis, then there would be the confidence would be boost up in to the foreign investors to come here and invest in the market.
Yes, thank you so much. You have three questions for me. Number one, the increase in remittances in the by the in the first quarter. You know, the workers working in the Gulf region, they visit Pakistan during the summer. So there is a natural inflow of remittances during this time. So nothing extraordinary, to be honest. They come visit their families during the summer vacations, and it happens every year. The remittances go up during during this period from June to September. So October always looks good. So nothing extraordinary. Now you're saying that foreign direct investment grows 48%, but from what to what? 771 million to 903.5 million. Only less than 200 million investment has gone up, which is totally insignificant. And that too, we will have to see in which areas the people, this kind of foreign direct investment has been attracted by Pakistan. And now the question of why Pakistanis are not investing in Pakistan, and on the contrary, there is a flight of capital from the country, and we know that in the previous couple of years, people have taken their money out of Pakistan. They have moved their businesses to Dubai and Bangladesh and other countries in the region. Why is that? And so my question will be: have we seen any trend in reversing this whole thing? Have any Pakistani investors, industrialists moved their businesses back to Pakistan during the last 2-3 years, or more recently? None. So that remains
Unfortunately, very few examples, but almost dry. This area is almost dry.
It is totally dry. And why is that? And I think the answer lies in Bukhari Saab's early statement, where he says there is political instability in the country,
Yes.
and the dollar remains overpriced. Let me tell you. I talked to a couple of friends in the market, and according to them, the dollar should be somewhere around 235. It is floating around 285. So this 50 rupees gap in the real value of dollar, that also remains a major impediment in attracting the investment here.
Your point well taken, Dr. Hasan. Tanseer Bukhari sir, Tajir Dost scheme. That is, the government proposed another amendment now in the tax law to have Know Your Customer, NYC, digital invoice system to encourage the trader registration as regular taxpayers, and it will also compel the importers and manufacturers to sell their products to the known customers, means the retailers, to bring traders in the former tax regime. How much beneficial would it be to expand the tax net particularly, and whether people are coming straight away voluntarily into this system, Know Your Customer?
Faisal, first I answer your question. With due respect, my mentor Dr. Hasan said all these things about the country current scenario. We all are here on a national TV. First of all, we try to don't give the disappointment to the public. Right now, the position, I said many times, the political instability. What is the reason of instability? All people knows, okay? We see the transformation of government in 2018, 2013, 2008 as well. Never happened before like this. So my mentor, Dr. Hasan, with due respect, We must give the positivity which bring our country, bring our nation way forward.
Definitely, definitely.
As
But
we are
it's
sitting on the,
not
as
it's
we are
not
sitting on the national TV. So
definitely it's not in
Now,
negative that
yes,
at
yes,
least
yes.
when we are talking about Tajir Do scheme, because
Yes,
earlier
yes.
very few traders are actually attracted towards that, and
Yeah.
that is the reality. And even the
Reality.
finance minister
That
himself
was,
said that.
was the futile exercise which has been done by the government with a great good faith, I am
But
saying.
the intention of the government is not, that is positive.
Yes,
They want
positive.
to have the
But
expanded tax base.
formulation was wrong. I already expressed my view on your program when this scheme was launched.
Yes, yes.
Here is the, you use the term know your customer.
Know your customer.
NYC, okay? Okay, very simple. Sales Tax Act 1990. Section 21 deals with the, and 22 and 23 with the mechanism of invoicing, okay? You are talking about the invoice, digital invoice system.
Definitely.
This experience has been done 4 or 5 years before, very successfully.
Point of sale?
Yeah, no, point of sale, and the one word has been added in the law. Each and every sale should be on CNIC.
Definitely.
Okay?
Definitely.
That was done in
Because that is your
previous years.
NTN number.
Yes, due to the business community protest and this, so and so, and even large scale industries as well, the government again omit this amendment. This is the right time. We see the all these things, inflation.
But I think so.
all
I'm
these
very
things.
sorry to say, business community, the traders, they are always, we salute them. They are
Of
doing
course.
excellent. But they have to think that this country belongs to us all.
Of
and we
course.
have the responsibility first,
Yes.
and then we have to claim the right.
We are talking negative, but no positive contribution from our side.
Now we have to
so
do
the
the positive
one word
contribution.
CNIC
Definitely.
inserted, if it will be inserted by the government and implement whatever the price increase, whatever the inflation, no matter.
Bukhari sahib, you are
will
talking
take-
about the positivity. So
Yes.
here is one of the positivity. That is, Dr. Ali, that what led the current account surplus to sustain since months, as it was $218 million during July to October in the current year, against the deficit of $1.52 billion during the same period in 2024. In October alone, it was $349 million as compared to the September $86 million. So you have little space.
Right.
Whether it's because of the tight fiscal policy, the 35% increase in the remittances, the 48%, though meager, but surge in foreign direct investment as well, marginal import and export growth, or any other reason.
I think you have laid out the basic factors of how we have, we have managed to keep a current account surplus. Also, there's a, in last couple of years, we have also applied import compressions or import controls. We've also deployed the policy where we have withheld the profit repatriation, which is the right of the foreign investors for some time. Even the letter of credit, the LCs, has been sort of managed. So these are all the factors, along with the other factors which you have mentioned in terms of the inflows, remittance, and exports helped. But here is the basic question, and basic question is, from an economic policy standpoint, there's a trade-off.
Obviously.
There's a trade-off between managing a current account surplus and economic growth. To me, the real sort of vision should be driven by economic growth. In the past, and in most of the developing countries actually globally, have managed the current account deficit to 1 to 2% of GDP. It is manageable as long as the country is growing, the economy is growing at a faster pace. Businesses are working, the productivity is rising, the import and export and trade is expanding. So we can manage that. So I think looking at just current account surplus while ignoring the factors which will contribute to economic growth itself is problematic. So while I acknowledge that it is helping in terms of our balance of payment, accounts. So that was the driving point where we went to IMF.
Yes.
So from that point of view, it is understandable. But from an economic growth point of view, I think we should
So,
Now we should
what
be
about
more
Ali,
aggressive.
Dr. Ali? What about the Pakistan's exports? You were
Right.
rightly saying about that we cannot ignore other benchmarks. So, what about exports? Because information technology, IT sector is showing the growth. The raw food exports are growing actually. Then the meat export increased by 4.7%. That is good. So, rice export and overall large scale manufacturing is actually a problem, which is which you have already rightly mentioned about. Textile even given the growth of 5.1%. So, how do you see that where we have to focus? Export-led growth is very important for Pakistan rather than just managing it. You required the cheap energy in the industry, the value addition, the trade diversification as well. And there is a consultation going on between World Bank and Pakistan as well to harness the real-time Pakistan's export potential, and that is beyond $60 billion. So how do you see the technicalities and what we have to do, where we have to pinpointedly focus to enhance our exports?
So when we talk about export strategy, I would like to mention three important recommendations or as a way forward. First of all, there are three factors. The competitiveness of our products, whether you talk about IT or meat or agriculture or textile, we need to increase the competitiveness, which means that the costs of producing has to be brought down relative to other competitors in the global market. But also in terms of the value addition, we recently had first time I think Pakistan exported a consignment of shrimp.
Yes.
Which is the first good news. It was a small consignment,
Definitely.
but nevertheless it's a start.
Yes.
EU and US has opened the market.
And at least to 4 to 5 countries we are exporting
as
to
long
them
as we
well.
can improve the value addition, I'm sure there are bigger markets out there. Second thing is the productive capacity. In terms of even the level of production has to be increased substantially. You see, let's not ignore the fact that we are a large nation.
Yes, yes.
Sixth populous nation in the world, and a large middle class also. About 40% of population is middle class right now, according to some estimates, which is bigger than many countries in the world. So it has its consumption needs, and we have to feed, and they have to actually arrange for their food, housing, clothing. So there is a need for domestic economy growth. Third thing, very importantly for exports, is the market access. How are we looking at international markets?
Definitely.
Are we creating more opportunities for our businesses, let's say in
New
US,
markets, we require
in
new
Europe,
markets.
or in Africa? Or
Actually, we have
closing
run
down?
short of time, so your point well taken. Tanseer Bukhari sir, very short, because very brief on that aspect. How vital it is to decide all litigation matters quickly, because recently the FBR written a letter addressed to the Chief Justice of Pakistan to sought urgent attention, outlined some of the cases must have to be prioritized and disposed of in accordance with the Article 199(4)(a) of the Constitution. These cases or the litigations are related to the Finance Act 2015 Section 1B, 4B, 4C and 147. So these, that those were related to the super tax. So how important it is that court of law must have to take its course as well and quickly to resolve these issues, because ultimately economy is suffering.
Include in it Section 7E of the Income Tax Ordinance.
Obviously,
also.
obviously,
The
that
large
also,
revenue
yes.
is also awaited. Decision is pending before the Supreme Court. Already CJP took action on it,
Yes,
but
he
the
had.
main action required by the government appointment of new judges at the level of high courts, and most important at the level of tribunals, in where 2,600 billion rupees stuck. Whatever we can say, maybe this is the vague figure, because the tax authorities never make the correct and true cases, even the fudge figures and too much wrong.
Whatever
wrong
it would be, but
information,
at least
you
there
can
should be
say.
some, there could be
But
some of
it
the
is a need
amount
of
stuck
time
over
to
there.
appoint the judges, member accountant, member judicials in taxation courts. This is that need of time. As you said, the very short thing we can say government need immediate steps on it. Appointment of judges in Islamabad High Court for special tax benches, and appointment of judicial and accountant member in appellate tribunal inland revenue across the country, Lahore, Karachi, Peshawar, Islamabad and Multan and Quetta. So if the benches sit and dispose of the
Means it's
cases
important that the
judicially,
judges in judiciary and
We are
particularly in the appellate tribunal, it is very
we need,
important
but,
to
but
be
one
appointed.
another thing I clear it. When I am talking about it, when the government take this step, the people saying, okay, they are appointing their judges. We need to leave these
Definitely,
type of
we must have to
talks.
leave such kind
So
of.
we see the country
definitely.
first.
We don't have to speculate actually.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Saeed Tanseer Bukhari, for your presence here in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Ali, for your presence. And thank you very much, Dr. Hasan, for your candid views and your presence online. I'm really thankful to you. Viewers, as you have just listened to our panelists, it is important that no doubt that 40% of the revenue target which enhanced that is important to achieve, because that is the real benchmark for Pakistan's economy. When it comes to the inflation rate, it's okay that it is going down, but there must have to be other steps have to be taken, because it's the responsibility of the State Bank of Pakistan to keep it in 5 to 7% bracket. When it comes to the agriculture income tax, we have to simplify the tax returns submission, and also the agri tax must have to be made easy. Climate financing is the crucial thing for Pakistan, but first we have to achieve those benchmarks which are very much important in the context of the IMF program. State-owned enterprises must have to be focused, because ultimately government has to curtail its expenditures, and particularly related to the outflow, which is unfortunately a burden on Pakistan's economy right now. So government is taking steps, but we have to be super fast on that. The competitiveness of the Pakistani products, the value addition, and obviously we have to tone down the cost of production, because that is, and the energy is one of the benchmark in that. Trade diversification is important, the new markets for Pakistan's products to be exported. So that is important. And a very important area is the appointment of judges into the Islamabad High Court and the appellate tribunals, because ultimately to resolve all those taxation matters urgently, and the matters related to Pakistan's economy, because in litigation most of the times most of the matters get pending, and ultimately the economy suffers. So I think so that the government is determined on that front, and we are very hopeful that Pakistan's economy will be rebounced. So this is today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.